Welcome to the real world. My name is Cameron, joined by Ben again. He is back.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Very
Hey,
happy to
everyone.
have you. Yeah, we're excited to talk about the MCU. We're both MCU fanatics, and so we wanted to
Indeed.
discuss this sprawling cinematic universe.
Brawling. That's
And
the word.
yeah, we're gonna basically take you all the way through the entire filmography of the MCU. Talk about what order you should watch them in. Discuss the current state of the MCU. We're going to talk about the future of the MCU. So if you're a fan of Marvel Studios and their films, this is the podcast for you. Let's get started. Thank you again so much for joining us here on the Real World Podcast. Make sure you go down and hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. We're approaching 600 subscribers. We want to get there as fast as we can, so we appreciate your support. Thank you very much. Make sure you share this video online with your friends. If you know of any Marvel fans, they're going to want to check this out. So make sure you share this online. We wanted to kind of kick off the discussion with just our general thoughts on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how things are going right now. There's a lot of talk about certain things that happened at Comic-Con recently, other things going on. So I guess I'll start us off just with my kind of general thoughts. I've been watching these movies since 2008 when Iron Man first dropped. I was a huge fan, and I've been a fan ever since. I think since Endgame, it's felt a little meandering. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of a general criticism of the MCU. It seems like they may have had some kind of a plan, but it wasn't very clear at first in Phase 4. So I really think they really need to focus on a central storyline.
They do.
That's what they need to kind of refocus on. Seemed like it was going to be Kang. After the news at Comic-Con, it's now going to be Doom. So it's going to kind of making a shift there, which I don't think we've seen them make that big of a shift since the beginning of this whole thing.
I mean, we never know. I know.
Right.
I don't know if Thanos was always the big
Yeah,
until Joss decided to put him at the
that's
end of the first
true. That's
Avengers
true.
film. So,
Right, exactly.
and the Russo brothers did say that Marvel Studios is a very fluid company.
Yeah.
That yes, they do have an idea of the Infinity Stones, but
Hmm.
they are
Right.
welcoming new artists like Ryan Coogler and Peyton
Yeah.
Reed to
Right.
give their own spin on a particular
Sure.
character.
Mhm.
And during that period of time, it worked
Yeah,
tremendously.
absolutely. Yeah. It felt very seamless, and it kind of flowed very well. So I would say, they need to again kind of focus on an overarching storyline. I felt like when we finally got Thanos and Infinity War, we were ready. Like we had teases, like at the end of the first Avengers and
Mhm.
in Guardians of the Galaxy and Age of Ultron. They had these little teases of them, and so we were really prepared for that character to come on screen. And they need to start doing that with Doctor Doom, and I hope they start doing that soon.
Yes.
I would also say building the characters, the character-centric films of the early phases of Marvel, I think were really strong. I mean, we
Yes.
all just really liked Iron Man, that first movie, Captain America. We all
Oh,
really related to that guy.
love
Same
Captain.
with Thor. I mean, even
He got better.
yeah,
He
absolutely.
got
So
better.
I think, the new characters they've introduced, some of them I really like, some of them I still feel like we don't really know that well. So
Hmm.
I feel like they can focus on that a little bit more. And then I would also say filmmaker driven movies. I feel like have kind of they've they've kind of fallen off with that a little bit. I feel like they've become a little formulaic. They've become a little predictable, a little stale, a little bland. When you think about, again, going back to the first Iron Man, it was just such a unique film.
Yes.
We hadn't seen anything like that. The first Captain America, a World War II movie, I mean, just these unique kind of ideas that the filmmakers were passionate about, Jon Favreau or Joe Johnston or Kenneth Branagh, these guys who were really kind of well-established filmmakers were brought in. Now they seem to go with a lot of indie filmmakers, which I like, but I feel like I would love for them to bring in, like they brought in Sam Raimi for the new Doctor Strange. Like ideas like that, bringing in these more established directors with a unique style that can really work within the MCU. I feel like I want more of that
Yeah.
too. So those are some of the things I would do. Also, I feel like I guess this has to do kind of with the overarching storyline thing, but post-credit scenes. We would always wait for those post-credit scenes, and they would always set up something to come. Sometimes they were a joke, right?
Yeah.
We had a few that were just kind of random jokes, but usually they're actually setting up a new character or some new storyline or something like that. And while I feel like some of the recent films have done that, they're kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, the Shang-Chi post-credit scene is cool, but I'm like, where is that going, and it hasn't really connected. We haven't seen anyone else really interact with him. Same with, Captain Marvel. Like, there's certain things, like, I can see kind of how they're trying to set up things, but it doesn't feel cohesive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's another thing I would work on. I think that they can do it. They've, again, obviously done it in the past many times, but I just feel like they've kind of dropped the ball a little bit when it comes to those certain things. So those are some improvements I'd like to see moving forward. Do you have anything specific? How are you feeling right now about where the MCU is?
I don't think the MCU is as magical as it used to be, especially
point.
like, from Iron Man to Avengers Endgame. It
Right,
was
right.
totally unique experience, especially when you got to see those final two Avengers films on the big
Yes.
screen. You got to see that ending, and you're like, you know what?
It
It's
all came together.
satisfying, but now
Yeah.
I'm contemplating, where do you go from there? And
right,
then
exactly.
we started getting all these movies. Some were cool, some were bit mediocre
Sure.
for my taste.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really clear to me as to where it was all going.
Yeah, right.
But then again, looking back on it, and thankfully with the grace of Disney Plus and Marvel Wiki, I was able to just look at certain things and try to piece things together.
Right.
I'm probably wrong, but
Yeah.
that is why I wanted to be a part of this podcast, because I actually
Great.
think I figured out a way to watch it. But I will say, the thing that's making this current state of Saga weaker than the first Saga is that it doesn't have any specific characters that focus. Because in Infinity Saga, you had Iron Man, Cap, and Thor.
Right.
You got to see personal drama, how they interact, what are the consequences of them interacting.
Exactly.
We haven't seen that with this, because I feel like they've focused too much on just the aftermath of Endgame.
Right.
That's been their mindset, the aftermath of Endgame, what comes next, instead of thinking like, oh, this character should come into contact with this character, what would happen politically or cosmically,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that all of the MCU has been lacking. There actually have been some pretty good movies.
Oh, sure.
I know I've liked some movies more than this guy over here.
Sure.
But that's the power of film criticism,
Absolutely. Yeah, great.
Subjectivity.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I would say, what Marvel needs to focus on, and I think they're doing it now, is just, establish who your new Avengers team is going to be, establish what your main conflict is going to be, and start piecing things together.
Exactly.
They really should start piecing things together.
Right.
Of course, like you said, bring in some unique filmmakers who can tell a singular story, but I do think it is important for MCU fans, because they keep coming to these movies for the connectivity.
Yes.
The big audiences, they come for the connectivity.
Sure.
And the teases and the Easter eggs. So I hope Marvel gets their groove back together. So by the time 2026 comes around, we will all be stoked for Avengers Doomsday and whatever comes between that and Secret Wars. Because I think that period might be something really special.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. All right. Well, that's it for our thoughts on the current state of the MCU. We're now going to move in to our watch order. So if you want to know how we think you should watch the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, so here is our watch orders for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Do you want to kick us off, Ben? Why don't you give us your first movie or show or short or whatever? How would you introduce someone to this world?
Okay. Now, basing this off of how it begins to the very last shot you see in Avengers Endgame, I think the movie that is appropriate to start your watch for the MCU is Captain America: The First Avenger.
I think that's a great choice.
What I would do is stop the movie right after the 40s events end. Stop it right there.
Okay, sure. Yeah, before that bookend with the present day.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Because we'll come back to it later on.
Sure.
What I would do. Yeah, Captain America: The First Avenger is the first movie you should watch in the MCU.
Great pick. I like going with that pick. I go with Iron Man still, just because I feel like it's so grounded.
I agree.
It's such a great character introduction. It's an easy way to get into that world, because if you have people who are like not into period pieces or whatever, they might be a little turned off by Cap.
Okay.
But I feel like Iron Man remains the most accessible MCU movie.
That does make sense
for a general audience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and I'm such a huge fan of that movie. And, it was how I was introduced to it. It's how most people were introduced to it in the theater. And so that's what I kick mine off with. Why don't you take us through the rest of like, phase one through the first Avengers movie and what you include there, and then I'll give you mine.
Okay. So the next project I have is a little Marvel one-shot called Agent Carter.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
It's a great
Yeah.
aftermath
It's
to
spun off into a show.
It did.
Which
And
is
I would
pretty
say
cool.
you can watch the show if you want, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
think just watching the Marvel one shot
Yes.
is enough because it introduces Shield.
Yeah,
The
that's
idea of
true.
Shield, how
That's right. Yeah, how SSR
Carter
becomes Shield. Yeah.
joined Howard Stark,
Uh-huh.
and now you know that Shield is becoming a thing. And then after that,
yeah.
I'm actually now taking a movie from Phase 3 that I actually think works better here.
Oh.
Because if you have all these other films that you watched before, and then you watch this particular Phase 3 film, it feels very weak.
Okay, okay.
So I'm going to choose Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
Because it continues the idea of
Sure.
Shield. It introduces Nick Fury. It introduces Phil Coulson. At the end of Captain Marvel, the events of that film sprung the idea of a possible team to develop. So
that's great.
But skip the post-credit scene. Hold on to that post-credit scene. Put it later on the list.
Yes, that would not make much sense there.
Yeah. So the movie excluding the post-credit scenes.
Yes, exactly. Right, right. Okay, so you got Captain America, the First Avenger, Agent Carter.
Yes.
Then you're going into Captain Marvel.
Yes.
Okay, what's next?
All right. The next one is Iron Man.
Yeah, that's good.
Because that is like the first major character that Nick Fury had his eyes on for the Avengers team.
Yeah, the Avenger Initiative.
And it's a continuation of seeing Agent Coulson and Nick Fury. And now you see Stark and like, oh yeah, Stark, he's the son of Howard Stark from Captain America, the First Avenger. So I'm going more of a timeline.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's more compelling. I actually watched it in that order, and I actually felt a different growth feel.
Yeah. I could see how that
appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so after Iron Man 1, do you go Iron Man 2 next?
Yes.
Or do you? Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it really
is
only a story that takes place between.
Right. Okay, great. Yes. So what about after Iron Man 2?
Right, after Iron Man 2, I go into The Incredible Hulk.
Oh, okay.
Because at the end of Iron Man 2, Nick Fury appoints Stark as a consultant. And the first consulting thing that Stark does is go see General Ross. Yes. After Ross deals with Banner and Blonsky.
Blonsky. Abomination. Right. Okay, good. Now, do you include that the other one shot, the consultant, in there to kind of?
That's later on, actually.
Oh, you put that later.
I put that later.
Okay. So what do you put after Incredible Hulk?
After the Incredible Hulk, I put in On the Way to Thor's Hammer.
Oh, right. Yeah, Coulson's. Yeah. Okay,
which means so Iron Man 2, skip the post-credit scene. That doesn't exist entirely because that scene you'll see again in Thor 1. So
yeah, right. Yep. Okay, cool. So Incredible Hulk, a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer.
Next, then Thor.
Okay, cool. Great. Okay, excellent.
Thor introduces Thor, the god of thunder, Loki. It brings back the Tesseract, which was a thing from Captain America, the First Avenger, and Captain Marvel. Now you're bringing it back up like S.H.I.E.L.D. had it this entire time.
Right. Yes.
You got that. And then you have, of course, the post-credit scene for Thor. You can see it there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can watch the consultant because it seems like after dealing with Thor, Coulson has his
they're having a diner
meeting with Sitwell.
Right, exactly. Okay.
And then you can bring in the epilogue of Captain America, the First Avenger, because he's about the guys during that time.
Yes, and that post-credit scene where he's punched the punching bag.
Yes.
Has that preview for Avengers and all that. Yeah, cool. Yes. Okay, good.
And then to cap off this period of Phase 1, the Avengers.
The perfect capper for that.
Still a great movie in my opinion.
Yeah, I rewatched it recently. I liked it a lot. I've got issues with it. It's not my favorite Avengers movie, but it is a really fun culmination of that whole first phase of building all those characters, bringing them all together. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll give you my Phase 1 watch list, which is a little bit different. So I start with Iron Man, like I said earlier. Then I go into Iron Man 2.
Okay.
So I do kind of the 2 Iron Mans back to back. It's almost like a part 1 and part 2, I feel like. They're same director, have the same tone, the same feel, continue straight off of that. Then I go into Thor. So I go right off Iron Man 2 into Thor. Again, because of the post-credits. I'm including the post-credit scenes because, again, I think that's such a fun part of watching these that I had to kind of try to connect those a little bit. So Iron Man 2 into Thor, because we have that scene with Coulson finding Thor's hammer. Then I go into The Incredible Hulk. Okay, so after The Incredible Hulk, I go into Cap.
I suppose that makes sense.
Because Incredible Hulk mentioned super soldiers, right? They mentioned that serum, and they give it to Blonsky and all that, so that's something that I thought connected those two movies pretty well. And then, of course, adding in the consultant, right there would be great. Right after that, and then, if you want to, throw in Agent Carter, right there would be a good spot to throw her in, and all that. So then, of course, I go to the Avengers. But then I add on, because one thing I did, I kind of like having the same number of movies in each phase. So I tacked on actually 2 more movies after the Avengers as kind of epilogues. One of them's an epilogue. One of them's you could, I guess, kind of consider it a setup for phase 2, maybe.
Yeah.
So what I did was I did Iron Man 3.
Okay.
So I think it's cool to start with Iron Man and end with Iron Man, phase 1. That's kind of my thinking there. It's like Iron Man 3 is a cool kind of capper.
It works.
You know what I mean?
It's
not, because it doesn't really set up anything in phase 2. It's really a totally standalone story. And so I decided to put Iron Man 3 there. And then I also closed it out with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. So the first Guardians, and the reason I did this mainly is because of Thanos.
Okay.
So we have Thanos very briefly set up at the end of Avengers. And we're like, who is this guy? And in Guardians, you finally get to kind of see who he is. You have a scene with him. You understand who Gamora is and how she connects to him, Nebula, that whole thing. So most people probably wouldn't include, either none of those are phase 1 movies technically, but I thought including them to kind of round out phase 1 and set up phase 2 was a cool way to go. So it's unique, it's different, but that's my phase 1 watch order.
It's interesting,
It's different, yeah.
I hope you post this because
I did. I just posted it on my blog. I posted it last night on my blog. I've actually got several watch orders, and I want to get yours so I can add it in there.
Okay. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. So let's jump into phase 2 now.
All right.
So why don't you kick us off? How do you start phase 2 of the MCU?
I think after debating this thoroughly, I think the best way to start is to pick off where Thor was. So Thor: The Dark World.
Great pick.
Thor just took Loki back to Asgard, and we see the scene where Odin sentences him for eternity in the dungeon.
Right.
So,
well, I'm right on board with you there. I think that's the perfect way to kick off phase 2. It again kind of leads out of phase 1 really nicely.
Plus, you get an Infinity Stone in Avengers, followed by another Infinity Stone in Thor: The Dark World. So.
That's right. And there's that post-credit scene with the Collector too, which is fun. So, okay, now let's jump into your next phase 2 film. What do you have after The Dark World?
The next phase 2 movie for me is Iron Man 3.
Okay, perfect.
Because it's that Christmas.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
right. Mine is not exactly timeline order. You're going much closer to the timeline, which I think is great, especially for
now.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you got Iron Man 3 next.
Yes.
And then what's after that?
The next after that is The Winter Soldier.
Great, excellent.
Fantastic movie that changes almost everything you know about the background of the MCU.
Right, absolutely. Okay.
We thought S.H.I.E.L.D. was this big thing, turns out to be Hydra, and everything comes to ruin.
Everything collapses.
Which gives a good reason for the Avengers to come back.
That's right. So do you go Age of Ultron next?
I actually don't, because I realize there is a bit of a time jump between Winter Soldier and Age of Ultron.
That's a good point.
To fill in that time gap, I put in Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 because they're only a couple months.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, right. They are very close together. Okay, cool. Yeah. So then after, so you got Winter Soldier, you got Guardians 1, Guardians 2. Then do you go Age of Ultron?
I do.
Okay, gotcha.
Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yeah, a big movie. What happens there? New characters introduced.
Sure. I don't think it was as strong as the first film, but on a filmmaking standpoint, I thought it was visually cooler.
Yeah, it was.
Ultron was decent. There were some things I would have changed, of course, but yeah, it's still a great film. I mean, in comparison to the type of content we've been getting in Phase 4 and Phase 5, Age of Ultron really isn't that bad of a film.
I think it holds up well. I actually like it more than the first Avengers, unlike most, but cool. Yeah, I really like the visual style, the new characters introduced. I really like James Spader's performance. I agree. I would change a few things about Ultron.
Yeah.
But I think he's great in that. I'm excited that he's coming back.
Yes.
That's going to be fun.
That's going to be really cool.
Okay, so Age of Ultron, what do you have after that?
Yep, to round up Phase 2. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to add 2 more movies into this phase 2.
Okay, cool.
So I have Ant-Man.
Okay, sure. Yes. Ant-Man's a great follow-up to Age of Ultron.
And then this is only because I feel like he should have been around for a while learning his craft. Doctor Strange.
Good pick.
Yeah.
Good pick.
I think Doctor Strange is a good movie to end phase 2.
I like that.
Because you see Avengers Tower, you're thinking, oh, the Avengers must still be a big thing.
Right.
So,
right. Exactly. Cool. Yeah. So we're kind of on the same wavelength here because I've got, like I said, Thor: The Dark World I'm starting off with. Then I'm going straight into Winter Soldier, since I already had Iron Man 3 in the end of phase 1. Straight into Winter Soldier, straight into Age of Ultron after that. Then I'm going Ant-Man. Then I'm going Doctor Strange after Ant-Man as well. I'm putting Guardians 2 right after Doctor Strange, which I guess it could go before. It kind of, those two I kind of went back and forth on.
Maybe time works differently up in space.
Yes,
it does on Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got Doctor Strange, and then I actually cap off phase 2. Again, I like the idea of kind of mirroring phase 1 where I started and ended with Iron Man. Here I'm starting and ending with Thor. So I'm actually putting Ragnarok at the end of phase 2. So
that's an interesting place to put it.
Yeah, it definitely should be further along in the timeline. Yeah. But I like the idea of starting and ending with Thor and setting up Infinity War earlier, setting up what's going on with Thanos a little bit sooner. And you get and it also explains why he's not in my first phase 3 movie. So that's where I put Ragnarok. Again, because I like the idea of having the same number of movies in the first 3 phases. So I got 8 movies in phase 1, 8 movies in phase 2. That's where I end things off. Okay. So what do you have for phase 3, the final phase of the Infinity Saga, as we're coming to a close with this first kind of storyline?
All right. Well,
what do you have there?
The first movie that starts off phase 3 with a bang is Captain America: Civil War.
Yep, I'm with you again. We've been with each other on these last 2 phases as far as the ones we're starting off with, because yes, I'm starting off with Civil War as well. It's a perfect way to kick things off. I mean, this one really even more than Winter Soldier. It really changes everything. Like
tears the Avengers apart.
Yeah, exactly. So great one to kick it off with.
Yes.
Now, here's where things get interesting is what you follow that up with, because several films are tied directly into that one.
They are.
Obviously we're introducing Spider-Man and Black Panther.
Yes.
Black Widow's movie is a really tricky one to kind of put in there. So what do you go with directly following Civil War?
I think it's appropriate to follow Civil War with Black Widow. Just to see, she just left the compound and everyone's after her.
The first scene is Ross is after her, and Okay, excellent. Yeah, I like that pick.
So I do Black Widow, and then I do Black Panther. Because Black Panther takes place 3 days after King T'Chaka's death.
That's right.
So right after turning in Zemo, he returns to Wakanda to become the next king of Wakanda.
Yep.
And then he meets Killmonger, and it becomes all Shakespearean, which is really cool. And we see a lot of likable characters and cool action sequences. And they waste Andy Serkis, in my opinion. That's my only complaint with Black Panther, because I feel like he should have stayed to become a bigger foe.
He could have for sure.
So Civil War, Black Widow, Black Panther. Then we do Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Okay. Yep.
And then I decided to put Ant-Man and the Wasp after Spider-Man: Homecoming, just to add 2 bugs with House Arrest. So for Ant-Man and the Wasp, like all these other films, I'm telling you to ignore the post-credit scene. Ignore the post-credit scene in this movie.
Spoilers.
So you do that, and then you go into Thor: Ragnarok.
Okay, yes.
Where you have the space adventure. And then the ending of Thor: Ragnarok naturally leads into Infinity War.
Yes.
Which was an experience unlike anything I've ever seen. A great film. And then followed by Infinity War. That's where you get the Ant-Man and the Wasp post-credit scene and the Captain Marvel post-credit scene.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I like that. Yep. That works.
And then to cap it off, you've got Avengers Endgame. And if you want a post-credit scene, put in the post-credit scene from Black Widow. There, Yelena's in the movie.
Oh, nice. I like that.
You introduce Yelena and Black Widow, like, where is she in all this time? Then put in Black Widow's post-credit scene.
Yeah.
She was in Endgame.
There you go. Excellent.
I like one who went to Natasha's funeral. Everyone else went to Tony's funeral.
Yes, exactly. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, so here's my phase 3 watch order. So as I said, kick things off with Civil War. Perfect place to start. huge world shifting things going on. Characters are in different places. Then we follow that up with Black Panther. So I go Black Panther next. I think, Civil War does such a great job setting up his character. And I just kind of want to see where that goes. Of course, the post-credit scene of Civil War is Cap and Bucky in Wakanda. So it's kind of a natural progression there. Then I go Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Homecoming is a perfect one to continue that on with. Him and Tony's relationship and all that works really well. Then I go into Infinity War. So since I've already had Ragnarok earlier, I go straight from Homecoming into Infinity War. And then after Infinity War, that's where I put Captain Marvel. Because again, the Infinity War post-credit scene is Nick Fury using the pager, sets that movie up. So we go straight into Captain Marvel. We get the whole backstory of her and the Avenger Initiative and all that. Then I go Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp obviously ends with him stuck in the quantum realm, which plays heavily into Endgame. Yes. So that's a perfect transition there. And then I cap off phase 3 with Black Widow. So much like you, I like the post-credit scene. But of course, the movie is all right after Civil War, so I totally makes sense to put it where you put it. But I kind of like having an epilogue, a send-off for Black Widow. Basically, it's kind of what it is. She has a great character arc and storyline in Endgame itself. I think it's a great send-off for the character, but then getting her own movie, getting more of her backstory and her family and Yelena and all that, I think works as a great way to kind of cap off phase 3. So that's where I end the Infinity Saga. Are you ready to jump into phase 4? All right, folks. Well, that's it for the first 3 phases, what's known as the Infinity Saga. Now we're going to jump into the Multiverse Saga, which is the phase we're in right now, phases 4, 5, and 6. So why don't you kick us off with this new kind of storyline as we take off, after Endgame. How do you continue, or kind of I actually look at it as kind of almost restarting in some ways. Yeah, it's a continuation, but it's like I said, the Thanos, the Infinity Stone storyline is over. So how do you start things off with this new storyline?
Well, to start things off for me, I have to think cause and effect wise. What is the biggest effect that happened?
Okay.
Because of what the Avengers did in Endgame. And I think to respect that, the best place to start for the Multiverse Saga is Loki season 1. When he steals the Tesseract,
that makes a lot of sense.
Is introduced to the TVA, and he discovers that the Infinity Stones have no significance whatsoever. I think that entire episode being like, this entire setup right now has no factor into this new saga.
Sure.
But I'm only counting season 1 because time and space works differently in the TVA. So this story is the beginning.
Good point.
Because at the end of Loki season 1, this is how I see it. I could be wrong. The multiverse unleashes. In a way, because the entire time the TVA has been focusing on just the MCU timeline, making sure everything was in check according to the Master's plan, who's revealed to be Kang.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So when the multiverse opens up, that's where you put in What If season 1.
Oh,
then you can put in some of the X-Men movies from the Foxverse. Excluding as of right now, the Foxverse, but don't put in Logan or the 2 Deadpool movies just yet. That comes later down the line. But Fox movies, and then for Sony, of course, you gotta watch the Tobey Spider-Man films, watch the Andrew Garfield films, and I guess watch the first 2 Venom films if you want to. I'm actually a bit behind on the Sony cinematic universe because I think their movies all look very plastic.
Right.
But then again, I'm one to talk for watching some of the latest MCU stuff. But anyway, that is that period of Loki, What If season 1, the Fox X-Men universe before Logan and the Deadpool films, and the Sony's verse. I'm calling that the collapse expansion period.
Okay,
of
I like
the MCU.
Okay, cool.
That little bracket. Loki season 1, What If season 1, Sonyverse, Foxverse.
Okay.
Then you go back to Earth 616.
Okay.
And I think the next few movies are kind of the aftermath stage I put all the aftermath movies together because I feel like that's what everyone wants to know. Like, how is all the characters we know, how are they feeling after what transpired?
Exactly.
So to open things biblically, I think it would be interesting to start off with Eternals.
I like that. I like that.
Especially because when you see them immediately, you're immediately like, where were you guys during the Battle of Thanos?
Well, literally, like you said, biblically, it says in the beginning. We go back thousands of years before anything we've seen before in the MCU. So I like that idea. Okay, cool. Yeah. So
you start off big if you want to be on the MCU side of things and not the multiverse side of things. So from multiverse, if you want to go big, Loki season 1, MCU, Eternals.
Great choice.
Because it's not that long after what happened in Endgame when the Celestials ready to wake up.
Right. And they mentioned Thanos and all that. So cool. Okay, excellent. All right.
So I keep going. Eternals. And then after that, I would do WandaVision because WandaVision takes place only a few weeks after Endgame.
Good point.
And you see Wanda coping with the fact that she has nobody anymore.
Yes, right.
Then she does this little experiment. She somehow brings Vision back to life. She has twins. She gets into a feud with Agatha Harkness of all witches.
Yes.
And she meets Monica Rambeau.
That's right.
Who we saw in Captain Marvel. So now you were like, oh yeah, you're connecting the dots. Yeah, she knew Captain Marvel. So it ends with Wanda going off with the Darkhold. Probably not the smartest thing to do because that can really mess with your mind if you're not careful. So that's WandaVision. And then to continue the aftermath side of things, I think the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is the next story.
Sure.
Just thinking about the ending of Endgame. Steve gave Sam the shield. You immediately want to know, is he going to take up that shield? Is he going to drop it? What's going to happen? Now, I'm not saying that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier was a great show. I don't think it was amazing. It was decent. There was a lot I liked about it. Like I loved the introduction for U.S. Agent, that actor. He was so good.
Wyatt Russell. Kurt Russell's son,
I felt so bad he got beat up on the internet, even though he was just playing a character.
He was playing it the exact way he's supposed to play it. I mean, that was
just like the comics. He's supposed to be like that.
Exactly.
So, yep, that is Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Now, this next film, this came out later on the release schedule, but I decided to put it here because they make it aware that this character has been only away from Earth for a few months and not a year, over a year. So right now, I'm putting in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, continuing. Yeah, because we see him go off with the Guardians at the end of Endgame. So yeah, we want to get back to him. Yeah, I agree. We should get back to him a little sooner. Than we did.
So we see Thor: Love and Thunder, and it looks like it's getting towards summertime. It feels like a summer movie. And so to continue off from that summer movie is Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Yes.
And then that ends. That is the end of the aftermath period of things for me.
Okay.
For me.
Cool.
So yeah, Eternals, WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Thor: Love and Thunder, and Spider-Man: Far From Home. That is the aftermath period of things.
Great. Okay, I like it. I like it. Excellent. Okay, so that's it for Phase 4 for you. Or do you have more for what you would consider Phase 4? Or is that how you would close it out?
I did not think of this as phases.
That's fine. We can just continue on if you want, or I can give you my whole kind of Phase 4 order. Because I just have a few more on mine than you do, I think.
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
All right. So what I'm doing is I'm kicking off with Eternals. I like that idea, like you said, Eternals to me feels very much like wipe the slate clean, all new characters, showing us things we've never seen before, that kind of idea. So I like kicking off with that. But I also like your idea of the aftermath. Like, what's the fallout of Endgame? Where are our characters? So like you, I like to have Loki season 1 in there because, again, that's setting up our multiverse saga that we're going to get into. Then I go into WandaVision. After WandaVision, I do Shang-Chi. Okay. So I actually like introducing his character earlier in that phase because I like having a mix of new and old. Right? I like to have that still mix of like we got a new thing with Eternals. We're continuing Loki's story. We're continuing Wanda's story. Then we're get a new character, Shang-Chi. So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings I put after WandaVision. Then I go back to Falcon and Winter Soldier, get their kind of storyline, pick that up. He's got the shield now from Cap, and he's dealing with that. Then I go into Far From Home. Okay. I think is a great way to continue, Spidey's story. He's dealing with, the loss of his mentor and that whole thing. So that's one that, very much continues off of what we had in Endgame. Then I go Love and Thunder, just like you. Thor: Love and Thunder, I think, definitely needs to be in there earlier. So I think that's a good buffer between Far From Home and my next one, which is No Way Home. Because I think Far From Home and No Way Home, I mean, the end and beginning of that movie is the same scene, right?
Yes.
It's like literally in direct continuation. So I put that right there towards the end of phase 4. And then I've got a few more in there. What I do is I put in Werewolf by Night after that. I think Werewolf by Night was a lot of fun. I really liked that special that they did. Michael Giacchino, the composer, directing it, did a great job. I have a lot of fun with that. Then I go into another one I want to pick up with that I feel like these last projects kind of give us some closure with some characters. So I do Black Panther Wakanda Forever next. I think that's a great way to kind of send off T'Challa, of course, our tragic loss of Chadwick Boseman. I thought Letitia Wright did a great job carrying on the mantle. So I do that one next. Then I jump into Hawkeye, the Hawkeye series. You know, we're in that winter phase now with No Way Home in New York, and that ties in really well with that. So I do Hawkeye next, and then I do the other Christmas special, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which was tons of fun. And then I close out phase 4 with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is, I think, a perfect send-off for those characters. You know, it directly references the holiday special, so I think having that in there is really good and necessary. But that's how I close out phase 4. So I like phase 4 is interesting, you know, because again, it's setting up some new stuff, but it's also ending out some stories. So I wanted to have that balance there with my phase 4 movies. So that's what I ended up doing for phase 4.
Okay.
So why don't you continue with your watch order? Going off of what was the last one you ended on?
Spider-Man Far From Home.
Far From Home. Okay, great. So Far From Home, where do you lead in from that one?
Well, at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, everyone found out Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't that much leg room to tell the story between those two movies, even though I know you did.
Sure.
And the world is massive, so you could have. But this thing for me, watching Far From Home, I immediately wanted to know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What happened after that?
Yeah,
so the first thing that's on my list, even though I don't count this as the aftermath stage, this is the start of kind of bringing in some multiversal aspects into the multiverse saga.
Okay.
So I start off with Spider-Man No Way Home.
Excellent. Okay, great.
Which completely changes Spider-Man's life for the better, in my opinion. I love how it wrapped up. I'm like, this is a perfect way to wrap up the Homecoming trilogy and pay respect to who he is in the comics, you know?
Yes, very excited for the future.
Amazing, yes. Yeah. And then right after Spider-Man No Way Home, we go into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
That makes sense. Yeah, because he's in that, right? I mean, he's a major player in that movie. So yeah, that's a really good lead into that. Excellent.
And in that movie, we discover that Wong is taking up bigger responsibilities as Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, that's right.
So at the end of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, after battling Scarlet Witch and sending America Chavez to Camartage, Doctor Strange disappears. We start to see more of Wong's duties as Sorcerer Supreme. Yeah, so that's where I introduce Shang-Chi.
Oh, yeah. I like that. That's a great way to do that. Yeah.
And it introduces this MacGuffin, which brings in, at the end, both Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel.
That's right.
And so by watching that trailer, of course, you're thinking, you know, what is this MacGuffin? But on a side note, you were wondering, you know, what are these characters doing?
Yeah.
Which is where, after Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I follow Bruce Banner home. And I introduce us to Jennifer Walters.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
She-Hulk attorney at law. And I will say this, just watch the first episode. Watch the first the rest of the show. You don't need to, even though it's cool to see Daredevil. Daredevil is really cool.
And I actually kind of like the final episode. I thought it was kind of fun. I know a lot of people hate it. No, I actually liked the way they ended it. I actually thought it was kind of clever. The rest of the show, I agree, it was kind of felt like a waste of time. But yeah, okay. So you go She-Hulk after Shang-Chi.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, I like that.
And at the start of She-Hulk attorney at law, things start to become more down to earth and more society and street level stories. So after She-Hulk attorney at law, I go to New York. It's Christmas time. Let's do Hawkeye next.
My personal favorite series.
That's a great show.
So good.
I want a season 2.
I do too. I think it'd be great.
It would be great to have season 2.
Yeah.
So Hawkeye. You see Clint Barton again. You're introduced Kate Bishop, you see Yelena again.
That's right. Yes.
So it does make you appreciate the Black Widow film.
Definitely.
That's the thing I like about it, because it actually made me appreciate that movie. Before, I'm like, I don't
It
need
did.
to.
Right.
This movie does not need
I
to
know.
exist.
Yep.
But after watching Hawkeye, I'm like, I'm kind of happy they had that movie
Me
after
too.
all.
Me too.
Because Florence Pugh is a delight.
Fantastic.
And my personal opinion, I think she should be one of the characters at Focus.
Oh, I agree.
She'd be great. Yeah, I think everyone will be on board with Yelena. So, so that would be that. After Hawkeye, we immediately go into Echo. Because she leaves New York, goes on to more personal, darker, more serious matters. And I think keeping that trend going, you go into Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Because watching all those films, it would be about a year after we lost T'Challa. So,
and another thing about Echo I was going to say is Kingpin.
Yes.
Who shows up in Hawkeye, plays a major role in her series. So that's a great lead-in.
It's
a great lead-in. And so,
and as of right now, I kind of have a feeling that the events of Daredevil Born Again are going to take place after Echo.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
I think that, and
100%.
Going back again, my apology, getting off track. I think Agatha all along is going to take place after Multiverse of Madness, because my theory is that she gets free of her spell because Wanda dies.
I agree.
I think the 616 version of Wanda died.
I'm right there with you. Yep, 100%. 100%.
So that's where I put those projects as of right now.
So you ended that with Wakanda Forever.
Yeah,
right?
Wakanda Forever.
That was after Echo.
After Echo,
okay,
yes.
Cool. Okay, so what's after that?
So now we're in a more political crisis period, and since we see characters like Everett Ross and Valentine, I thought, you know what? Let's bring back Nick Fury. So that's where I put Secret Invasion.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Now, I wouldn't say Secret Invasion is a great show. It's not. This should have been an Avengers film, like a Secret Avengers film. Would have been perfect. You have Sam Wilson's Captain America. You got Shang-Chi. You got She-Hulk. You got Monica Rambeau.
Yes.
You don't have to incorporate Miss Marvel or Spider-Man just yet. They should be off doing their own thing. I got these more newer characters to play with, but that's what I would have done for Avengers 4.
I agree.
Or 5. Avengers 5.
Avengers 5, yeah.
Avengers
right, yeah.
Crazy, dude.
4.5.
4.5. Anyway, that's Secret Invasion.
Great.
And then the next project on my list, this is now in the Marvels and Scrolls period. That's what I'm calling it. So it starts with Secret Invasion. Then you have Miss Marvel.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
And the interesting thing, and I'm surprised you didn't bring it up, but there is a link between Shang-Chi and Miss Marvel.
Good point.
Yeah, their MacGuffins are connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
good point.
I put that there, and I think it's just natural to go right into the Marvels after Miss Marvel.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
You like Kamala Khan, you want to see where she's going. The next thing you see her in is this big chase movie.
Yeah, exactly. So. Great. Okay. Well, why don't you stop? Is that a good stopping place for you, or do you have a couple more you want to say before I jump into my phase 5?
Stop now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So here's how I'm jumping into phase 5. So again, phase 4, new characters introduced, closing out a lot of storylines. Phase 5 is where we're really jumping into the multiverse saga. So I'm starting with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness there. So that's my kickoff for phase 5. Then I'm going into the What If show, which I have a ton of fun with. I really like that. You know,
season 1, right?
Season 1, yeah. I mean, you can watch both seasons after Multiverse of Madness, I feel like. But yeah, season 1 it is really fun. There were several episodes in season 2 I liked a lot too. Then I go into Moon Knight. I think Moon Knight is a really fun one. Again, a new character. I wanted something new in phase 5 as well. So that's a great new character to introduce. Then I jumped to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is what I put after that to kind of catch up with his character and get into more kind of quantum shenanigans and that whole thing. Then I go to Loki season 2. I think Loki season 2 is really important. I think it's better than season 1. The finale is one of my favorite things that Marvel's ever done. It was a perfect final episode.
I agree. It was amazing.
So that was a great one to kind of, bring things together, close things out for his character. Then I jumped to Echo.
Okay.
And I think Echo is a great series. Then I jumped into She-Hulk, another new one to introduce, new character there. And then Miss Marvel. So Miss Marvel would be my next series that you would watch. And then I jumped into Secret Invasion. So I think Miss Marvel, great introduction to her character, the Bangles, that whole storyline. Then Secret Invasion getting Nick Fury and all that, and the Skrulls. Then the Marvels. So that's how I lead into the Marvels as our kind of final Phase 5 film that's been released. I mean, I guess I would throw technically. I think Captain America: Brave New World and Thunderbolts are still in Phase 5.
Yeah.
So I guess we could throw those in there to kind of close out Phase 5. Again, obviously we haven't watched those yet, but yeah, I think that would be a great way to close it all out.
Okay.
So let's jump back to your list and show me where you're going next. Where you left off with, was it the Marvels?
The Marvels,
okay,
yes.
Cool. Okay, so where do you go after that?
Okay. At first, I was going to temporarily depart the Earth and go back into the galaxy to see what the Guardians of the Galaxy are up to.
Yeah.
Just for the fact you just see how big Groot has gone.
Right.
They make it look like that Thor: Love and Thunder and the holiday special are only like a few months apart. I don't believe that's the case because it seems that a lot of time has passed since those movies, which is why I put Thor: Love and Thunder in the aftermath period of things.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I suppose I can put it there because the
Guardians
Marvels is
3.
in the fall. Yeah. It's obviously in the fall. And now you have a Christmas place.
Yeah.
Christmas story you got to put in the background. So that's where I put the holiday special followed by Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Okay, excellent.
Which is a nice send back.
Yeah.
And then once you come back to Earth, you're given the song "Welcome Back" in Quantumania.
That's right.
And I don't think the movie was terrible. I still had fun with it in some places. I don't know if you watched any Rick and Morty, but it gives off a lot of Rick and Morty vibes.
Okay, sure.
And I love it kind of confirms my theory. I strongly believe that Shang-Chi's 10 Rings and Kamala's Bangle are King technology.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. You get to kind of see it in some of the things he creates in the quantum realm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with the ships, you see the rims. I'm like, this looks exactly like the 10 Rings and Kamala's Bangle.
Yeah.
So I'm putting it there just to show some fans, I think this is where it's going. Right. And then you have Kang and you want to know what on earth is going to happen with him. That's where you bring in Loki season 2. Back to the TVA, you see Loki actually finds a way to handle Kang, not make him as prominent anymore by taking his place. And that's how I think Marvel can naturally move away from him.
Yeah.
Even though I think there'll be at least one more project where we will see Kang fully be taken care of.
Okay. Interesting.
That's my theory.
To see what they do with that.
Quantumania goes right into Loki season 2. And within that bubble, you get What If season 2.
Yeah.
You get you can watch Spider-Verse. You can watch Venom: The Last Dance when it comes out.
Right.
And you can watch Logan, Deadpool, and Deadpool 2.
Yes.
And that gets you right into Deadpool Wolverine.
There you go. Our latest film.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's exactly how I would do it right after the Marvels. Put it right there.
Now I know people might be wondering why I did not put Moon Knight or Werewolf by Night in there just that. It's just I'm not finding anything connective about it. Eternals at first I couldn't find anything until they released a trailer for Captain America: Brave New World. They're fighting over the Celestial and the Sea finally.
That's right.
You have this thing peeking itself out of the ocean. When are you going to discuss it?
Right, exactly.
So that's why I have Eternals at the beginning, because it just opens things up on a different standpoint.
Sure.
The aftermath. So as of right now, that's great. Where I would put everything, watch order wise.
Love it. Excellent. Well, let us know your watch order if you have one. We want to know how you watch all these movies and all these series. It can get kind of complicated at times. On the blog, I've got my own. Actually, I've got several watch orders there. If you only want to watch a few movies, I've got kind of a quick way to watch through the MCU. I've got a comprehensive one. I'm going to include Ben's on the blog soon. I'm going to edit it, and so I can include everything you've got here, which will be a lot of fun. But before we close off this episode of the podcast, let's talk about the future.
Okay.
There's a lot of projects they've announced.
Yes.
As we mentioned earlier, things have been shuffled around. We've got, big casting announcements recently and things like that. So let's talk about moving forward. I mentioned Captain America: Brave New World. That's our next film.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I'll start. I'm really excited about it. I think the trailer looks great. Harrison Ford, my favorite actor of all time. He's gonna be Ross.
Mine too.
He's gonna be Red Hulk. I mean, it's gonna be crazy. I'm so looking forward to it. He seems enthusiastic about it. I mean, on stage at Comic-Con, he was hulking out and doing all this fun stuff, which was great to see. So really excited to see what they do with that. Like you're saying, mentioning, the Celestial and Eternals and bringing that into play. And I think they mentioned at Comic-Con, Adamantium is going to come into play, which is going to be really interesting to see what they do with that. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to really kind of help us understand what's going on again politically, like in the
Yes.
world, how the world is dealing with the fallout since Endgame and how governments have been rebuilt and all these different things that have had to happen. So very curious about that one. Then we're going to go into Thunderbolts.
I think that's a
So
natural
that's going to be
stepping
because
stone.
I hear that Ross is going to show up in both. That's the rumor I heard.
I'm not
Which
so
would make
sure
sense, but I don't know.
if that's still gonna happen.
I don't either. But I'm very excited about that. Of course, we've got Fantastic Four, First Steps.
That's my most anticipated movie because I've been wanting to see the Fantastic Four for such a long time.
Yes.
I'm kind of jealous. I wanted to be the guy to do the Fantastic Four movie. I know I'm probably too young, but if I was able to do just one Marvel project, it would be the Fantastic Four.
They've got a great team. I mean, Matt Shakman, who did WandaVision, I think it's a really good choice.
Perfect choice.
The fact that they've got Giacchino doing the score. I mean, it really, to me, that 60s vibe that it supposedly has, we've seen some images and things that I think look very promising. So I'm also looking forward to that. Now, recent announcements regarding Spider-Man are pretty exciting.
It is now. At first I was very concerned what they were going to do, but it looks like after the release of the Venom The Last Dance trailer, I think we now know what they're going to do, and I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a very unique Spider-Man movie if they're going to go that route. So.
If they go that route, it will be very interesting. Yeah, they have Null, the god of symbiotes.
Yes. And Norman Reedus is playing him.
That's exciting.
I wanted him to be Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I know. I did too. A lot of people thought he would be.
Daryl from The Walking Dead would be the perfect Ghost Rider, but no.
Yeah, he goes with
he's actually going to be Null, the god of the symbiotes.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting way to see. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that plays out with The Last Dance. What they do if they do bring in Tom Holland, and that's the next thing is a Spider-Man Venom team up, which I would have never guessed.
You said Tom Holland.
Holland did it. No, I meant Holland Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly, if he shows up,
okay,
I think that could be an interesting way to go.
Yes, for sure.
With the future. So yeah, Holland and Hardy, the two Toms together.
Tom and Tom.
That's right.
Maybe that's what they should call it in secret,
right,
on the film clip. Tom
exactly.
And Tom
the working title. Yeah, that would be good. So yeah, very curious to see what they do with Spider-Man 4. I mean, if it is a Venom team up, that could be unique. They supposedly, I think it's confirmed that Daniel Destin Cretton from Shang-Chi is directing.
Yes.
So that has me very curious too. A lot of fans thought, could it be a Shang-Chi Spider-Man team up? That could be cool.
Yeah, see, when they announced his name, I immediately thought, wait, is Spider-Man fighting Mr. Negative?
Yeah, right.
That
exactly.
would be cool.
It would be cool. There's a lot of ways they could go with Spider-Man. I mean, there's even a new rumor saying, no, it is going to be what we initially thought, which was a Daredevil team up against Kingpin. That's still a possibility. We don't know. I mean, there's nothing official confirmed yet. There's a lot of ways they could go with Spider-Man right now. A lot of options.
Yes.
But I'm very excited and curious to see what they do. I would, I think, prefer the street level.
I would too.
Thing, the Daredevil Kingpin storyline, closing that out. But again, we don't know what Born Again is going to be. So
sure.
It's all up in the air. We're really excited to see what they do with that because there's so many ways they could go. Again, where they ended with No Way Home is so perfect. Great kind of new beginning for the character.
Yeah.
So after that, Shang-Chi, speaking of him, he supposedly has a sequel that's still in development. No director attached, but Simu Liu, I think, is so good in that role.
He is.
I really want to see more of him. So very curious to see where they go with that. Armor Wars is supposedly still in development. Blade is supposedly still in development.
When are we gonna get Blade?
I don't know, man. They've already cast him, It's like I don't know.
Like 5 years.
I know. It's been a long time. So those are projects that again we know very little about, both Armor Wars and Blade. I would love to see both. I mean, Armor Wars, if I had to pick one, I heard some rumor recently Marvel is gonna just scrap one of these projects. I think I'd rather see Armor Wars. I really want to see Don Cheadle get his due as War Machine and send off that character in a big way. And I'm such a huge Justin Hammer fan. I would love to see him come back into the MCU. We had to wait years for Trevor Slattery to come back. We had to wait years for we're finally getting Tim Blake Nelson as the leader.
Yes.
So these long-awaited characters to come back. Justin Hammer's still out there. So I'm holding out hope that Sam Rockwell comes back into the MCU. But we'll have to wait and see. And then of course it all's going to culminate with Doomsday and Secret Wars, our next two Avengers films. So any predictions, any, again, you mentioned you're very excited about Fantastic Four. What are you looking forward to?
I think it just all comes down to how they start connecting things,
Yes,
you know?
I
But
agree.
I've already said that my most anticipated film is Fantastic Four First Steps.
Yep.
Because it's time for Marvel's first fantasy first family
yes,
to get their due.
exactly.
I can't talk
agree.
to people. I don't know why.
That's all right.
How? Okay.
Let's talk a little about. We've talked a little bit about it off the podcast,
Yeah.
but what do you think about RDJ back as Victor Von Doom this time?
I was thrilled hearing the announcement. I just saw it. I'm like, you know what? It's concerning, but if done right and with the right directors and writers involved, it can work, and they've got it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
They've got the pieces that they need to make an effective movie.
Yes.
Now it all depends on how you're going to connect and tease this.
Right. I agree.
But Doom is a worthy character.
Oh, 100%.
And he does have a big role to play in the comic books of Secret Wars.
Right.
So
I just hope they start to sprinkle him in. I want to see post-credit scenes with Doom, setting him up, his look. You know, I hope he has the mask. I don't want him to be maskless Doom the whole movie. You know,
my theory is for most of Doomsday, he's going to be under a cloak or wearing a mask, and at the very end of Doomsday, he will take it off. Everyone will be caught off guard, and in the process, people die.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I see, like Rhodey dying, Winter Soldier dying,
Yep.
Ant-Man dying.
Sure.
Anything can happen in the movie.
Yeah, they need to raise the stakes. That's another thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were talking about the state of the MCU. They need to raise the stakes and start killing off some characters.
They do. Wong.
I feel like
I don't want him to go, but I feel like Wong. Yeah,
Everyone
Doctor Doom kills Wong. Doctor Doom temporarily becomes Sorcerer Supreme.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it could be interesting. Yeah, I hope he has the accent for RDJ. I hope he has a Latvian accent, and I hope he's under the mask.
Yes.
I hope they display him as a very powerful, formidable, intelligent foe.
Yes.
For the Avengers to face off against. I think it's going to be very effective. And I'm curious to see how they introduce him, where he's going to show up first. So that's it. Any final thoughts on the MCU, the future, the timeline, the watch order, any of those things that we've talked about?
You know, in the midst of messiness, madness, chaos that is brewing in the universe, there's still a lot of potential to be excited again.
I agree.
And I just hope Disney gives Marvel the time they need to deliver quality content.
Yes. They've talked recently about scaling back.
It's the right thing to do.
I think 1 or 2 series a year.
Yeah.
1 or 2 movies a year. That's what you need to do. I think, scale it back, take your time.
I think that's what's been so refreshing this year for me, because they only released Deadpool and Wolverine, which was enough.
True.
It was enough. I mean, you have a couple shows on Disney Plus, but one movie.
Yeah.
That's how you get your audience, and it worked. So
I agree, 100%. Good points. All right, guys. Well, that's it for our big MCU extravaganza. We talked all about the movies, the shows, gave you our watch orders. We talked about the future of the MCU, what we think they need to do to fix some things. But like you said, the future's bright for the MCU. There's endless potential. I mean, the source material's been around for 80 years or something, almost 80 years. So this is a fun universe to talk about. It's a fun universe to get lost in. And so we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again, Ben, for joining me.
Always a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, it's a blast. So thank you again for joining us. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. I'm going to leave a link to the blog post so you can check out all these watch orders and timelines. Ben is on Letterboxd. I'm on Letterboxd, so we're going to leave those in the description so you can follow us there. Thank you again. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos, and we'll see you next time right here on The Real World.
Later, guys.